Hey, what's up, guys? It's opinionatedQ, and I'm back. And today I'm giving my opinion on the Bela bill and the protests against it in South Africa. And we're watching it on Carte Blanche YouTube.
One aimed at clarifying long contested parts of the Schools Act. To many, the so-called Bela bill is uncontroversial, allowing more children access to good schools and enforcing better governance. But it's become a political lightning rod, attracting strong opposition from parents, lobby groups, and even...
And just to give a historical kind of background to the Bela bill is the Basic Education's Amendment Act. So that's what Bela is. They amending the Basic Educations Act that was passed in 1996. This is important because in 1996, when the final constitution was passed, we had confirmation judgments before that to confirm the constitution. So during those processes of the confirmation judgment, between the National Party and the ANC, there was contention, and they locked heads between them. There was a lockheads on the fact that the Educations Act and how this act would be outlined. So the other side, which is the National Party, wanted their own they like white schools, Afrikaans schools, while the ANC was aiming for a more inclusive, progressive kind of mindset between black people, Afrikaans schools, and just having general public schools. That's why they locked heads. So because the ANC wanted to continue with the confirmation of the constitution, I think they agreed to what the National Party was putting to the table, of the fact that white schools would only be Afrikaans medium schools and all of that. So now the ANC has amended that act because they have the power to, and they kind of struck off everything that the National Party put on, which is why the Afrikaners think that it's a form of fight against them. So the Bela bill promotes stuff like grade R is going to be compulsory. They penalizing parents that stop their kids from going to school unjustly. They prohibit initiation actions in schools. Like certain schools have initiation practices. Like there's a local school in my area where there's initiation for grade 8, and the rule is if you in matric, you throw eggs at the grade 8 as an initiation ritual. So they're trying to stop those cases. And the last is they further regulate homeschooling. So that's kind of the historical background on the Bela bill and what the Bela bill is all about. And we can continue watching the video.
Even some political parties.
In fact, so intense has the criticism of certain sections of the bill become that it's threatening the government of national unity. On Wednesday, thousands of parents and activists marched in Pretoria to highlight what they say is an assault on Afrikaans and Afrikaans schools.
Whatever our disagreements, we all seek a better, a more efficient, and a more equitable education system that best serves the children of South Africa.
I'm asking you, President, politely and respectfully so, sign that law.
The Afrikaans-speaking community, we see it as an issue of survival.
Organizations that are lobbying for Afrikaans are being populist when they look at this progressive act, which is to ensure equity.
There are so many incredible developments we could find in Bela if our eyes were not so focused on the wrong things.
It risks dividing the sector if we don't resolve the issues around clauses 4 and 5.
So, I find it funny how Afrikaner nationalists and Afrikaans people in South Africa, not all of them, but some of them, always find a protest to some sort of black progression. So what I mean is, every time the black government or black people do anything to progress black people, they feel that it is an attack on Afrikaans people. That's a very weird thing that I always see. But let's view the protest.
Thousands of people marched from the Voortrekker Monument to protest the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, known...
Look at the colors they're wearing. They're wearing it's orange, it's blue, and there's white. So those are the general colors of the apartheid flag. It's ironic, and it's very sad to see some black people within the march, hey?
As Bela.
Hulle probeer om Afrikaans uit die land uit te druk en ons Afrikaners gaan dit nie toelaat nie.
We cannot take away the rights of parents. We cannot allow the government to be in charge of everything.
What are the DA people saying, man? Come on. They were part of the government that signed the Bela bill. They're in the GNU. Why are they in the protest? Why is the DA in the protest anyways?
It's become a battle over language, identity, and access to education. On one side is a fear that the act will signal the death of Afrikaans government schools.
Bro, Stenhazen was there. John Van Vesthuizen, sorry for butchering your name, is the DA president in parliament, the DA president, the DA leader in parliament, the DA president in South Africa. And he's also the Minister of Agriculture, if I'm not wrong, who is also part of the GNU, the Government of National Unity in South Africa, which is an amalgamation of a lot of parties, but mainly the ANC and the DA in parliament. And the funny thing is, the DA had the power to stop this bill from being signed, but they couldn't. For some reason they didn't, but they're here busy protesting. Another thing is, the Minister of Education currently is a DA minister, Sivio Kgarube. Kgarube is her surname. I don't know if Sivio is not her name. I'm definitely wrong. But Kgarube is her surname. She is the Minister of Education in South Africa currently. This bill was signed under her watch, under her department as well. But they busy here protesting, acting like they with the Afrikaners, man. Stop it.
On the other are those who say those schools fail to meet the needs of their communities.
Presies 4 en 5 gee te veel mag na die provinsiale regerings en dit vat te veel weg van ons ouers en ons gemeenskap.
Signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa in September, Bela is seen by some as the biggest threat to the government of national unity.
Everybody has to have a red line that you can't cross. If we reach that line, they'll do what they have to do.
It aims to overhaul our education system, from homeschooling to religion in schools, and makes grade R attendance compulsory. Most of the amendments are uncontroversial.
Part of the reason why the Bela Act came about is because the education department kept on being taken to court about some of these things because there wasn't clarity in the system.
But two disputed clauses are jeopardizing an already fragile power-sharing deal. The DA has threatened to withdraw from the GNU.
So, yeah. So the Bela bill thing is the Afrikaners and maybe the DA are arguing two clauses within the Bela bill. So it's clause 4, clause 5. And as you can read on the video, is clause 4, the act gives a basic education department greater control over admissions policy in schools, and they compel school governing bodies to submit schools' language policies to the provincial head of department for approval. So what the Afrikaners want is that they want the admissions policy to be written by themselves, the SGB. They also want that the language policies be written by the same people. They want to do this because to them, the idea of exclusion is the idea of saving themselves from annihilation of some sorts. They think that if they include other languages within their curriculum, if they include other races and other cultures within their schools, that it diminishes in some way the Afrikaner culture within the schools. So a certain Hoër school in a local Hammanskraal area includes a bit of Sotho children and Sotho speaking teachers, and Sotho as like a language that is optional for the students to choose. They feel that in some way that diminishes the fact that it's an Afrikaans school. At the end of the day, they want to safeguard the Afrikaner culture and Afrikaner schooling in some sort. I don't know why they think that including other South African languages within their curriculum and their schools and admissions policies opening up to other races and other cultures is going to diminish the fact that it's an Afrikaans school. But let's hear the arguments and logic behind it from the protesters.
If they are passed in their current form. The standoff has put the new Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Kwagube...
Hey! Her name is Siviwe. Hey! Her name is Siviwe, so I was correct. Siviwe Kwagube.
Difficult position. She's a member of the DA, but as part of cabinet, she's compelled to ensure Bela is implemented.
Yep.
So now we have a consolidated piece of legislation. So it's a move in the right direction, but greater consultation needs to be done.
The contested clauses are Section 4, which gives the Department of Basic Education control over school enrollment, and Section 5, which compels schools to submit their language policies to the department for approval.
Yeah.
Both were put on hold for 3 months to allow for more consultation.
If a solution is not found, the law stands as I will have signed it today.
It will just be an input that you give. The final decisions will be taken elsewhere. And especially where you're trying to protect your culture, you're trying to protect your language.
But in a democratic society that is progressive and is trying to change from historical inequality that still stands, we're trying to be very inclusive of the fact that South Africa is an unequal society. Why do they feel, why do the people that promote this Afrikaans national thing believe that it's going to ruin them? So I believe that the government is in their right mind if they're trying to push the fact that these schools must be progressive. We are tired of conservative Afrikaner nationalists pushing this agenda that they must be the sacred parts of minority in society that does not become inclusive of other people.
The Act centralizes significant power under the Minister of Basic Education. Critics say this undermines the authority of school governing bodies, or SGBs, which are made up of parents and community members wanting to play an active role in school management. Charles Myburgh is Vice Chairman of the SGB at a leading Afrikaans primary school in Pretoria.
What are the concerns by those who are opposed to the Bela Act?
You currently have a grouping of parents that are willing to contribute because they see the benefits. When it's all been centralized into government, you may not have this voluntary step forward from parents to actually get involved and assist the school principal.
Another thing, remember guys, it's that these schools are not private schools. These schools are public South African schools. So to them, it's only good if the government is giving them funds to make the school operational. But it's not good for the fact that the government is telling them how to run the school in a way that is inclusive of all South Africa's cultures and languages. Imagine that.
The success of many government schools is driven by proactive SGBs. So if Myburgh is right, there's reason to be concerned. But its supporters argue that these fears are an overreaction.
Part of the controversy surrounding the Bela bill If you were to sum it up in one sentence, it's that interesting combination of misinformation and disinformation.
Emihle Majigija is a legal researcher at Public Interest Organization, Section 27.
If you turn to the South African Schools Act, there are already provisions that make it so that provincial departments of education can intervene. In fact, the Constitutional Court has even emphasized that the power of school governing bodies is not subject to, absolute autonomy. What the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act actually does then in this regard is that it concretizes principles that the courts have already pronounced on and that are already acceptable in our law.
So I don't have any concerns with regards to the Bela Act. We cannot pass on any form of policy, even the school code of conduct, without the validation of our district directors.
Sbusiso Masombuka is deputy principal of a leading English school in Johannesburg.
We are still able to develop our own policies. We just obviously need to adhere to the Constitution and everything else that is mandated by the government.
Exactly. The thing here that's very shocking, if this bill was so contentious and so vile and evil, all of the schools would have a problem with it. Not only the Afrikaans schools. Why is it that it's only the Afrikaans schools, English schools, Sotho schools, Zulu schools, if there's something that if I put these schools into a category of languages, which is not what it's done, but I'm going to do it for the sake of the video, are also complaining about the Bela bill, that would be a problem that the president and his executive and the parliament would have to fix. But the fact that it's only the Afrikaans schools and a certain portion of Afrikaans nationalist racists that are pushing this agenda is very eye-opening in this instance.
That going to delay some of the decision making?
It certainly is going to delay the process. I think the state is running quite a lot of schools, but I still think that schools or anybody that is developing a policy in a school needs to be inclusive.
We are pro clauses 4 and 5 because we believe that these are the clauses that will ensure that learners access education wherever that they want to in South Africa.
Nomosa Cembi is spokesperson for the South African Democratic Teachers Union.
There are concerns that they won't be able to be effectively govern some of government's most excellent schools.
We don't believe that this will take away the powers of the SGBs. It's just that at the end of the day, the department will have the final say. We believe it is crucial that the department has the final powers to exclude learners.
There are children who have to cross rivers to access a school. There are children who, in the face of the climate change that is rocking this nation, will probably not be able to have classrooms in the near future. To insist on the fact that in your school, because you have these resources, only your children can go to those schools, it says something about, I guess, Ubuntu in this country.
It's actually diabolical. It's evil at the fact that kids that are living in my area. So let's say a certain Afrikaans school is in my area. I can't speak Afrikaans for shit. I wouldn't have went to that school. I would have went to another school that accommodates my language. Imagine, I'd leave a school in my area just because it excludes me. In a democratic country that is inclusive, that comes from a history of apartheid and segregation, such things continue to happen. It's crazy at the fact that these people pride themselves in the fact that they exclude other cultures. It's so crazy to me.
But the real crux of the emotions swirling around Bela is language.
So I think it's important that we need to look at all the various languages in the country, and should rather push our energy towards preserving that than trying to put everybody in a school and we all are forced to speak English.
Everyone who's here is here because Afrikaans is important to them and because they wouldn't allow politicians to dictate the language policy of a school.
Oh, shame.
But if you want only Africans in your own school alone, that's going to be different. And we can meet and deal with it. And I'll tell you why I want to differ with you on that one. I don't want schools for train buses alone.
Exactly, Minister.
Part of the reason for the uproar is comments like this one from former Gauteng Education MEC, now Premier Banyazali Sufi, one of Bela's biggest supporters.
the law is simple. All our children must be in the same classroom and taught by the same teacher.
Yes.
What's wrong with that particular proposal? What's wrong?
We believe that the president is getting pressure from those anti-Afrikaans activists like Panyasa Lesufi, who openly states that there is no place for a single medium Afrikaans school in the province, and they are out to destroy Afrikaans schools.
It honestly doesn't make sense, though, to have a single Afrikaans medium school in South Africa, looking at the fact that the population that is able to speak up Afrikaans is so minute and small, looking at like the general numbers of people in South Africa, that you can't really exclude everybody because of that. It's so little that having a school that only promotes the Afrikaans language without inclusiveness of other languages in this country, the other 12 languages in this country apart from Afrikaans, are not allowed within that school. It's actually very crazy.
Dali Creel is the CEO of Afrikaner interest group AfriForum, which is concerned that Afrikaans schools will be forced to enroll students who speak other languages and then to change their language of tuition, phasing out Afrikaans and other languages altogether.
You have a colonial language, the biggest language in the world, and everybody is rallying behind that local language.
He just called English a colonial language, yet is promoting Afrikaans. Like, Afrikaans is not Dutch, a colonial language.
Languages that have been developed on African soil, why should they be portrayed as excluding? While in reality, many black children go to Afrikaans schools.
But not the majority of them, let's be honest.
Yes.
Majority of black people, black children don't speak Afrikaans.
Many of them, especially in rural areas, don't speak English either. Every year, if you look at the matric results, those schools that have the worst results, those schools with the biggest dropped out numbers, are schools where children are taught in their second or third language.
Mother tongue education is incredibly important. And so this is sometimes also what saddens me about this debate, because it's often divisive, because Afrikaans is one of the most widely spoken languages in this country, not just by white South Africans, across the board. There are many white South Africans.
That's the fallacy that people in the DA and the Western Cape believe, is that Afrikaans is widely spoken by everybody. No, Afrikaans is widely spoken by everybody there in the DA, because you are not going to become a black person that's in leadership positions within the DA if you can't speak Afrikaans. You have to. That's why they speak Afrikaans. It's not very general in South Africa that a black person, like if you were to pick out any black person in South Africa in very general terms, anyone, I can bet on my life that that person does not know Afrikaans. So that's the fallacy, that it's spoken widely among South Africans. It's spoken widely amongst people in the Western Cape and black people and colored people within the DA, because it's a necessity, it's a requirement within the DA. It's a subtle requirement because it's not constituted within the DA's constitution, but it's there because Afrikaners within the DA speak Afrikaans, so you actually have to know Afrikaans to be in the DA. Every DA leader in the past has known Afrikaans. She knows Afrikaans, I'm sure.
Across the board who speak the language, right? So you can't blame parents who are saying, I want my child to be able to learn and study in the language of their choice.
But Satu says that's exactly what the act is supposed to do.
The department will have to look at the community, what language is being spoken before it approves the policy that has been drafted by the school governing body.
Do you really believe that if there's more access in Afrikaans schools, it will solve our shortage of schools? Because the bigger issue here is that government isn't building enough schools.
Yes, government isn't building enough schools, but there is this hysteria. It's as if people are now going to rush to the Afrikaans school.
We can't be complaining about schools that are, in a terrible condition, lambasting the government for that. But at the same time, saying that, no, you can't come to our schools. A basic education system where you can arbitrarily decide that because you don't speak my language, you can't come into my school and therefore you can't exercise your right to basic education it doesn't make sense.
Definitely doesn't make sense.
And considering the needs of the surrounding community is something many schools already do successfully.
We've got 2 languages apart from English that we teach our learners in, and that is also we've brought into the consideration of the community and the kids and where they come from when we put these languages in force at our school.
And what are the languages?
It's isiZulu, and they can do that at first additional language as well as Afrikaans at first additional language.
Lesufi declined our request for an interview. His office told us he's not interested in answering questions about, in their words, organizations trying to build white enclaves.
Ons sê vir elke party van die regering van nasionale eenheid, as Bela oortree word, as die president implementeer 4 en 5, dan moet julle deelname as Bela oortree word, as die president implementeer. Ons sê vir elke party van die regering van nasionale.
Where are the Xhosa and Zulu schools? You owe it to all population groups. Don't convert Afrikaans schools, urban schools for other mother tongue education. Bela would ring the bell on our kids' education, lifts the standards on education, don't let it drop. So that's the kind of racist mentality and racist arguments that these Bela white Afrikaans nationalist racists promotes against Bela, is that if Section 4 and Section 5 of the Bela Bill are allowed within the South African society, that that inclusion of different languages, inclusion of different races within all the schools in South Africa, it's going to drop the level of education. So what they think is that the inclusion of black students within Afrikaner schools is going to drop the quality of education within Afrikaner schools. You can't be any more racist than that.
As Bela oortree word, as die president implementeer 4 en 5, dan moet julle deelname heroorweeg in die regering van nasionale eenheid, want ons kan tog nie 'n regering hê wat ons kinders vertrap nie.
The battle to find a middle ground continues, with weeks to go before the president's deadline.
My argument had been to say, send it back to Parliament, let Parliament be the one that panel beats this right. That's why the wording of clause 4 and 5.
Siviwe and the DA in this case are just virtue signaling and acting like they care and protesting because they want to keep the voters, because they know a majority of their voters do not agree with the GNU, do not agree with Bela. So they're trying to act. But in all honesty, they don't give a fuck. They don't care because they now have a taste of power. They have the taste for government. That's why they're doing that.
Life needs to be refined, because it needs to make it clear that it will not be a phasing out of a language, but adding languages.
Dit is of ek van John hou nie. Maar even wat ek weet, hy ek nie weer dat hy van Malema lyk. So dit is bewyse, klare bewyse, dat die GNU gaat werk. Ons gaan mekaar vind, no matter what.
Fighting talk from GNU Minister Gayton McKenzie.
He doesn't care.
And while the effect on state schools remains to be seen, the Act supporters are impatient to see it implemented in full.
It is really, really, really important. The transition passed it, the NCOP passed it. There was already public consultation. Democracy worked and gave us the Bela Bill. What more can you possibly ask for?
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. So Section 27 actually understands what is going on. Thank you to her. Thank you to her teachers. Thank you to everybody that contributed to the video. And that's it for my reaction to the Bela Bill protests. So do me a favor, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe on my channel. Peace.